Namaste students, welcome to Educator Guru YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to discuss economics model question paper which is given by the Karnataka State PU Board. This is the recent question paper of second year PUC. Let us start with part A. The first question is, which of the following is an example of a microeconomic study? The options are national income, consumer behavior, unemployment, foreign trade. The answer is consumer behavior. Anything that is micro deals with individuals and organization, and at the macro level as a nation or economy has to be considered. So the others are macroeconomic studies. The second question is, the shape of an indifference curve is normally convex to origin, concave to origin, horizontal and vertical. The answer is convex to origin. For your better understanding, I have given the shape of the concave curve and the convex curve. So this is the convex curve and this is the answer for this indifference curve question. Horizontal and vertical options are not curves, so those options will not be considered as an answer. The next question is, the market structure which produces heterogeneous products is called what? Monopoly, monopolistic competition, perfect competition, none of the above. The answer is monopolistic competition. So here again, as an explanation, I have given you the meaning of monopolistic competition and perfect competition as a comparison. So novels, movies are the examples of monopolistic competition. They are heterogeneous in nature. The year of Great Depression, so it happened in the year 1929. The answer is 1929. The next question. In this standard, all currencies were defined in terms of gold. Metal, silver, gold standard, none of the above. The answer is gold standard. Even today in India, we consider gold standard as a value of the currency that measures. The next section is fill in the blanks. As income increases, the demand curve for normal goods shifts towards what? So the answer is rightwards. As you can see in this picture, whenever the income increases, the line gets shifted to the rightwards, and whenever the income decreases, it shifts towards the leftwards. The SMC curve cuts the ABC curve at the dash point of ABC curve from below. The answer is minimum. Please note, SMC stands for short run marginal cost, ABC average variable cost, SAC short run average cost. So this is the line that cuts. So this is the minimum point. Eighth question. Dash is determined at the point where the demand for labor and supply of labor curves intersect. The answer is wage rate. As you can see in this graph, one axis we have quantity of labor supplied and the other axis we have wage rate. So this is the equilibrium wage that can be fixed. This is the demand curve and this is the supply curve. In monopoly market, goods that are sold have no dash. The answer is substitutes. So one of the important features of monopoly itself is not having close substitutes. That is why it is called as a monopoly. This smart art picture gives you an idea of what a monopoly is. What are the characteristics of a monopoly? 10th question is a very simple question. A part of the revenue is paid out as what for the service rendered by land? So it is called as rent. 11th question, savings is that part of income that is dash not consumed. So according to economists, saving means not consuming and keeping it for a future consumption. The next question is, the government may spend an amount equal to its revenue, and what is it called? It is a balanced budget. So in this picture, there are three types of budgets that is discussed. Expense is higher than revenue, deficit budget. Expense is equal to revenue, balanced budget. Expense is lesser than revenue, surplus budget. 13th question, very straight question. The Bretton Woods Conference was held in the year dash. It is 1944. So that completes fill in the blanks. The third section of part A is match the following. On A side, we have market economy, TFC, TVC, perfect competition, Adam Smith and GDP. On B side, we have TC, private, operation of the invisible hand, gross domestic product and perfect information. So let us start with the first one, market economy. Market economy can be linked to the answer private on the B side. That is because private players decide what has to be produced, for whom it has to be produced, and who are the users. So that is why market economy can be linked to private. The next match will be TFC plus TVC is TC. Again, this is for the better understanding. If you can understand the curves, it is easy for you to remember even if a different question is asked in the examination. So this is a TC curve. This TC curve is a combination of TVC and TFC, total variable cost and total fixed cost. So the third match is perfect competition with perfect information. Again, one of the characteristics of perfect competition is having a perfect information. These are the other characteristics. You can make a note of it in case you get a different question with perfect competition. The fourth option in the match the following is Adam Smith, and the answer is operation of invisible hand. So this is a picture of an invisible hand theory. So basically this theory is what a society benefits when people act in self-interest. So how it works is explained. So this is developed by Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations. GDP, as we all know, it is gross domestic product. The fourth section is about 1 mark question. Expand MRS. Marginal rate of substitution is the answer. This is a concept under diminishing marginal utility. The 16th question is about marginal revenue. So this is a 1 mark question. So 1 line answer is enough. Marginal revenue refers to the additional revenue generated from the sale of additional unit of product. So this is the marginal revenue which is shown in the graph. Quantity on one axis, price on the other axis. This is the demand curve. 17th question is what is the price floor? The imposition of a lower limit on the price of a particular good or service is called the price floor. So as the name itself says, floor is for the minimum, ceiling is for the maximum. So price ceiling is the maximum limit, price floor is a lower limit. 18th question, what is monopoly? A monopoly is a market structure in which a single seller or a firm controls the supply of the commodity. So in this picture, I have given you the characteristics of monopoly again. So there's no competition. It is very hard to enter the market because you already have a good player, a monopolistic player in the market. The monopolist controls the price and there's just one supplier. What do you mean by final good? An item or a good meant for final use and will not pass through any more stages of production or transformation is called final good. So basically, any substance or any item which is ready to use is called a final good. Write the meaning of autonomous consumption. Again, autonomous consumption is that which is independent of income. So there are certain inevitable expenditures that we do. They are all autonomous consumption expenditures. So even if the income levels are actually zero, this consumption is financed by borrowing or using up our savings. 21st question is the meaning of progressive tax. So a tax in which the rate of tax increases as the taxable income increases is called a progressive tax. So this is the depiction of progressive tax. So there is another opposite of progressive tax, it's a regressive tax. So income on one side, tax paid on the other side. What is balance of trade? Balance of trade refers to the difference between the value of imports and exports of goods of a country in a year. Again, this picture tells you the transactions between country A and country B. So there is import on one side and export on the other side. So there could be either a positive balance of trade or negative balance of trade. So students, this was part A of the Karnataka State PU Board Economics question paper, model question paper. So let us start with part B, 2 marks questions. The 23rd question on this model question paper is, what do you mean by inferior good? Give example. The demand for the goods which have an inverse relationship with consumers' income is called inferior good. So inferior goods are the opposite of normal goods whose demand increases even when income increases. Example, low quality food items, clothes, etc. The 24th question is, state the law of demand. The law of demand states that if other things being equal, a fall in price leads to expansion in demand and a rise in price leads to contraction in demand. The law explains the negative relationship between price and quantity of demand. 25th question is about long run costs. The costs of production incurred in the long period are called long run costs. In the long run, even fixed costs will also become variable costs. Hence, there are only 3 costs. They are long run total cost, long run average cost, and long run marginal cost. The next question is about the determinants of a firm's supply curve. So mention the 2 determinants of firm's supply curve. They are technological progress, input prices. Define equilibrium price and quantity. The price at which equilibrium is reached is called the equilibrium price. The quantity bought and sold at equilibrium price is called equilibrium quantity. 28th question is, write the meaning of monopolistic competition and give an example. Monopolistic competition market is a type of imperfect competition in which there are large number of small sellers selling differentiated products with free entry and exit. Examples, firms producing products like soaps, shampoo, toothpaste, biscuits, etc. What are the 4 factors of production? Mention their rewards. The 4 factors of production, so it is good to depict in a tabular format. So I have given a description here with 2 columns, factors of production on one side, rewards on the other side. For land, rent is the reward, labor, wages is the reward, wages or salary, capital, interest is the reward, organization, profit is the reward. Write the difference between the nominal GDP and real GDP. Again, tabular representation for all the differences is very important. It will be eye-catchy and the evaluator can easily assess your answers. Nominal GDP is simply the total value of goods and services evaluated by the current price. Real GDP is the total value of goods and services evaluated at constant set of prices. So usually the first difference will be the meaning. In any 2 marks question, if it is asked, meaning itself becomes the first difference. Here, the second difference, we have discussed what it measures. So nominal GDP cannot measure the actual change in volume of production, but the real GDP measures the actual change in volume of production. Give the meaning of CRR and SLR. This is related to banks. CRR stands for cash reserve ratio. SLR stands for statutory liquidity ratio. So the percentage of deposits which every bank must keep in the form of cash as reserves with the RBI is called CRR. The percentage of deposits that are required to keep with the bank itself in liquid form, that is in the form of cash for day-to-day expenses of businesses, is called SLR. Give the meaning of investment multiplier and write its formula. The investment multiplier is the total increment in equilibrium value of final goods output to the initial increment in autonomous expenditure. So the formula is depicted like this, delta Y divided by delta A. 33rd question, give the meaning of paradox of thrift. Paradox of thrift means if all the people of the economy increase the proportion of income they save, the total value of savings in the economy will not increase, it will not decline, or it will not remain the same. So basically, this paradox implies that if each individual saves something, it does not become a savings for the economy. Unless we expend in the economy improves. 34th question, why must public goods be provided by the government? Public goods cannot be provided by the market mechanism, that is, private players cannot provide public goods because they don't get any benefits or profits. They are meant for social service or social welfare of the people, and these must be provided by the government only. They are national defense, roads, administration, public park, library, etc. 35th question, mention the 3 linkages of open economy. The linkages of open economy are output market, financial market, and labor market. This is purely a macroeconomic concept. Output market is an economy that can trade in goods and services with other countries. Financial market is buying of financial assets from other countries by an economy. Labor market is firms can choose where to locate production and workers to choose where they have to work. 36th question is, what is foreign exchange rate? The rate at which one currency is exchanged for the other is called the exchange rate. Foreign exchange rate is the number of units of foreign currency which one unit of home currency can purchase. So for example, how much does an Indian rupee cost in dollars, or what is the exchange of a US dollar to the Indian currency? So this completes part B. Part C answers. So let us move on to the 37th question. Part C is all about 4-mark questions. The first question is, briefly explain how the family, firm, weaver, teacher can use their resources to fulfill their needs in a simple economy. So any question like this is given to you for 4 marks. You need to answer at least 3 to 4 paragraphs. And when I say paragraphs, it should contain a sequential sentences and connected paragraphs. For example, here if you can see, the first 2 or 3 lines will have some introduction about the question that is asked, and then there will be body of the answer, and then at the end you are writing the conclusion. Even though it is 4 marks, you have to follow this format, which is actually a good practice, which will help fetch you full 4 marks. So here if you can see the answer, it says every individual has some amount of only a few of the goods and services that a person would like to use. And there is this discussion on the family, how a family has to plan for its resources in the simple economy is discussed. And then in the next small paragraph about the firm, and then about the weaver, and then about the teacher. And finally, as a concluding remark, you have to say how the economy is behaving in this simple economy. So it says each individual can thus use his or her resources to fulfill the needs, and some others in the society may not have any resources except their own labor services. Moving on to the next question. Write the differences between substitutes and complements. So here, when I told you about the previous question where it was a descriptive answer, so 2 or 3 paragraphs explaining the answer to the question has to be written. When it comes to the differences, it is better to depict in a tabular format. And when you are depicting in a tabular format, make sure that you are writing enough to fetch 4 marks. Just writing 4 sentences or 4 differences, you cannot expect to get more marks. So the explanation should be candid and it has to be related to the question. So substitutes and complementary goods are the important determinants of demand for a commodity. So here I have explained both substitute goods and complementary goods in the columnar format. So first is about meaning. Goods which are used as alternatives to satisfy a particular want are called substitute goods. Goods which are consumed together to satisfy a want are called complementary goods. So this will be one point. In fact, you can also separate this example as a second point also. So it is good if you can represent in a neat tabular format. When I say neat tabular format, you need to take a ruler and a pencil and create tables and then write. Then is the relationship between the price and the good, which is discussed as the next difference. Then what kind of demand substitute goods have and what kind of demand complementary goods have. And then the last point is about, again, an example of how good a substitute good will be and what is the use of the complementary good. Moving on to the next question, 39th question, explain isoquant with the help of a diagram. Here again, I have given two kind of definitions or meanings. If you want to say, you can choose any of these. An isoquant is a set of all possible combination of the two inputs that yield the same maximum possible level of output. It is also called isoproduct or equal product curve, or isoquant is the locus of all possible combinations of two inputs, labor and capital, which results in the same level of output. So since they have particularly asked with the help of a diagram, here you have to take one example, a table and a diagram. Take the factor combination, capital, labor and output, and depict it in the form of a graph or a diagram, and then explain that in 2 or 3 lines. So what is combination A, what is combination B, what is combination C has been explained here, and at the end you are going to write a conclusion. So when marginal products are positive with greater amount of one input, the same level of output can be produced using a lesser amount of the other. So all isoquants are negatively sloped. The next question is about write a brief note on returns to scale. So returns to scale is the special case in the long run which occurs when all factors are increased by the same proportion, or you can also say returns to scale explain a relationship between input and output in the long period. So since it says brief note, write a brief note, you have to explain all the 3 different ways of returns to scale: increasing returns to scale, constant returns to scale, decreasing returns to scale. So as I had already mentioned to you, while presenting the answers, it is good to either highlight or underline the questions, and you have to use captions like these when you are answering. So it is better to avoid running paragraphs to actually fetch more marks. The next question is 41. Explain the determinants of a firm's supply curve. So we all know firm's supply curve determinants. There are 3 determinants: technological progress, unit tax and input prices. Again, it is better to put it in a kind of a diagram. It will not take much time for you. You just have to write either clouds like these or some kind of rectangles or square boxes and write these determinants, and in the center you put it as determinants of firm supply curve. So this kind of catches the eye of the valuer, so that will fetch you more marks. A firm supply curve is a part of its marginal cost curve. So this is the meaning that I have given here. And then first you have to depict this in a diagram and take the captions one by one and then explain. So technological progress has been explained, input prices has been explained, and unit tax has also been explained. The next question is explain the features of perfect competition. So here again, I have not given a diagram, but if you have time, you can actually take the form of a diagram and then explain. But since it is for 4 marks, if you are explaining 4 different features in detail, it is more than enough. So here we have kind of given all the characteristics here for your easy reference. So we have taken large number of buyers and sellers as one feature, homogeneous product as another, free entry and exit, perfect market competition, price taking behavior. Example is also been given, agricultural products. 43rd question, briefly explain why macroeconomics is different from microeconomics. This again we have discussed in the previous video. So it is better to have this kind of a depiction, differences in the tabular format. The alternative is like this. You can take a caption and highlight the differences. For example, scope is the point of difference. It is the statement of difference. And what is scope under micro and what is scope under macro? What does it study? That can be written. In the same way, method of study is the point of difference. How micro differs in method of study and how macro differs in method of study can be explained here. Economic agents, equilibrium, domain. The next question, explain the circular flow of income of an economy. Again, this I have given in the form of a bullet point and then a diagram has been given. So this kind of explanation will also fetch you more marks, because when you write through paragraphs, it is very hard to read for the reviewer, for the evaluator, and then understand what you're writing. So it needs lot of sentences for you to knit and explain it. So it is better if you use bulleting or numbering of the sentences and depict in the form of a diagram. The next question is write a note on externalities. Again, there are two things, positive and negative. When you start the answer, write a simple meaning in 2 or 3 lines about externalities and then come to the body of the answer with positive and negatives, and then at the end you put a conclusion. 46th question, explain the example of a planned accumulation and decumulation of inventories. So if a firm wants to raise or reduce inventories, then the firm indeed ends up with a rise or reduction in the inventories. So raise or reduction is planned accumulation, and reduction, raise is planned accumulation and reduction is decumulation. So an example has also been given and discussed in this answer. 47th question, give the meaning of aggregate demand function. How can it be obtained graphically? So aggregate demand is the total demand for final goods and services in an economy at a given price and time. It specifies the number or the amount of final goods and services that will be purchased at all possible prices. So this is the graph of an aggregate demand. So this is one of the important points or important chapters in economics. You need to practice this well, because you will definitely get a 4 marks question on this aggregate demand. 48th is write the chart of components of the current account. So again, I have given a brief description of what a current account is in 1 or 2 lines in the beginning. Current account is a record of trade in goods, services and transfer payments between the residents of a country and the rest of the world in a year. And components again has been depicted in a tabular format. So students, this is very important for you to present it properly, because the whole of your understanding of the concepts has to be presented in your examinations, otherwise you will lose out on gaining more marks. So part D basically deals with 6 marks questions. So let us start with the first question. 49th question in the model question paper. Explain the law of diminishing marginal utility with the help of a table and diagram. So all the 6 marks questions need to be answered in detail. So please bear in mind that it has to run through 6 to 7 paragraphs, or if you have something like this, the table and a diagram, you need to write the table, you need to write the diagram and then explain it. So here one definition has been mentioned in the beginning, in the initial paragraph, and then diminishing marginal utility is discussed in 2 paragraphs. And then the table. Table is basically one example. So table is nothing but an example. Number of mangoes consumed, total utility, marginal utility. And the description is given. Whatever the table says, it has to be explained here. The same thing is represented in the form of a diagram. Finally, a concluding paragraph should tell the valuer what you've understood out of that question and what does it say. So the last sentence is very important, what it clearly tells you. So here in this example, it clearly tells that the satisfaction derived from the successive consumption of mangoes is falling. That is the whole gist of diminishing marginal utility. 50th question, explain the features of indifference curves with the help of a diagram. So indifference curve is the locus of different combinations of two commodities which provide the same level of satisfaction. So again, when you're writing the features, you can either use bullet points like this. A, what it says, how does the slope behave, downwards from left to right. The next thing is about the level of utility, and there is a table and a diagram. So there should be a table written and the diagram or the graph explaining the table has to be done. Again, the concluding paragraph, what it means. So thus two ICs cannot intersect each other. The above three are the important features of ICs. The next question is about the simultaneous shift of demand and supply curves in perfect competition with the help of a diagram. So in the initial paragraphs, you need to write something about perfect competition, either the meaning or the feature or something like that which is related to perfect competition. And here they have specifically asked for the simultaneous shift of demand and supply curves. So how does the curve behave? That is what we need to explain in detail. So it has been depicted in the bulleting format. A, both supply and demand curve shift rightwards. So when you say that, how does it look in the graph? This has to be mentioned. B, both supply and demand curve shift leftwards. How does that behave? It should be shown in the form of a diagram. C, supply curve shifts leftward and demand curve shifts rightward. That is also to be depicted in the form of a diagram. D, supply curve shift rightward and demand curve shifts leftward. And then the last concluding statement. 52nd question is, the market demand curve of a commodity and the total cost for a monopoly firm producing the commodity are given by the schedules below. Use the information to calculate the following. So there is a table that is given and the question is about the MR and MC schedules, the quantity for which the MR and MC are equal, the equilibrium quantity of output and the equilibrium price of the commodity, the total revenue, the total cost and total profit in equilibrium. So these are the tables. So to answer, you have to take all the columns that is needed based on the question. So we need TC, we need TR, we need MR and MC. So this is the working. For question A, to calculate MR and MC, calculation of TC and TR is essential. Hence the following formulas are used to solve the problem. Total revenue, marginal cost. MR and MC are equal at the quantity of output. The equilibrium quantity of output is 6 and equilibrium price is 19. In equilibrium, TR is 114, TC 109 and so on. The next question, explain the macroeconomic identities. Again, this has been explained in the bulletin format. Point A, gross domestic product, gross national product, net national product. All the three has been given here. So this can also be depicted in a diagrammatical form also. You can have one circle saying macroeconomic identities and link the other three small circles explaining GDP, GNP and NNP. 54th question, explain the functions of money and how does money overcome the shortcomings of barter system. So while answering initially, I have given a short meaning of money here. Anything that is commonly accepted as a medium of exchange and measure value is called money. And the shortcomings of money, shortcomings of barter system is also explained in detail. So you can also describe what is barter system and how it is a drawback in the current economy. That can also be discussed. 55th question, explain the classification of receipts. So the government budget consists of revenue budget and capital budget. Both the budgets have receipts, that is revenue receipts and capital receipts. So please bear in mind when you see the question, this seems to be very common, but this receipt is not the common business receipt that we are talking about. This, since it is the economic subject that we are discussing, in this context, receipt means the government budget receipt. Okay, it's a macroeconomic concept. So you have to explain from that perspective. So revenue receipts is explained, custom duties, GSTs, everything comes under this. Capital receipts, sale of shares in public sector undertaking by the government, all those comes under capital receipts. And a concluding paragraph about revenue receipts and capital receipts. 56th question, write a note on balance of payment. Again, this is also a macroeconomic concept. Balance of payment is the record of transactions in goods and services, assets between residents of a country with the rest of the world. So what is a current account? Again, students, don't get confused with the current account which is in the bank where we commonly use. No, this is not that current account. Since it is economics, again, in the context of economics, current account is a macroeconomic concept which comes under balance of payment. So you have to explain what is current account and what is capital account. And give a concluding paragraph about balance of trade. Part E answers. Part E is related to practical oriented questions. Each question is for 5 marks. So the 57th question, a consumer wants to consume 2 goods. The price of bananas is rupees 5 and the price of mangoes is rupees 10. The consumer income is rupees 40. Based on this data, 5 questions have been asked. How much bananas can she consume if she spends her entire income on that good? So 8 units of banana, that is 40 divided by 5 is 8. The same way, how much mangoes can she consume if she spends her entire income on that good? 40 divided by 10, it is 4. So is the slope of the budget line downward or upward? The budget line has downward slope. Are the bundles on the budget line equal to the consumer's income or not? Yes, the bundles of budget line are equal to the consumer's income. And if you want to have more bananas, you have to give up mangoes. Is it true? Yes. The customer wants to have more units of banana. He has to give up mangoes due to limited income and constant prices. So, students, please bear in mind, practical oriented questions are very straight questions. Unless they ask for an explanation, you need not have to explain. So here, these are all straight questions and you can mention the number here, question subheading number, the bulleting number, and then you can start answering. 58, compute the total revenue, marginal revenue, average revenue schedules in the following table when the market price of each unit of goods is rupees 10. So this is the question. They have already given the format, how it should look like. So in the same format, you have to fill in the information. So this is the quantity sold, it's the price, TR, MR and AR. Write a note on demonetization. So again, here the dates, years and the government rulings are very important. So practical oriented questions basically deals with things like these, practical things. So you have to mention the first currency ban, the second currency ban and demonetization, how it happened, the history of demonetization has to be written in detail. So the last paragraph here, we have also included what is the failure that has been seen in demonetization. 60th question is name the currencies of any 5 countries of the following. So they have given the country names here. We have tried to answer all the currencies of the nations that is given here. USA US dollar, UK pound sterling, Germany euro, Japan Japanese yen, China Chinese yuan, Argentina Argentine peso, UAE dirham, Bangladesh Bangladesh taka, Russia Russian ruble. So this completes part E of the model question paper, which is given by the Karnataka State PU Board. This is the recent question paper that we have discussed. Hope this has helped you and wish you all good luck in the examinations. Thank you.